Welcome everyone to the 2023 John Hemphill dinner. Now that you're all in your seats, I'm going to ask you to please rise for the posting of the colors and the Pledge of Allegiance. From Bedichek Junior Marine Corps Color Guard. Ladies and gentlemen. Join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated. How about a hand for the Bedichek Junior Marine Corps Color Guard? Of all the people in the world, I wasn't even going to do the Texas Pledge, so that was good. All right, welcome to this very, very special dinner. My name is Ken Wise. I'm the immediate past president of the Texas Supreme Court Historical Society. I want to recognize a few special guests, and I'm going to ask them to stand as I call their names, but please hold your applause and please remain standing until the names have been called. From the Texas Supreme Court, Chief Justice Nathan Hecht, Justice Jeff Boyd, Justice John Devine, Justice James Blacklock, Justice Brett Busby, Justice Rebecca Huddle, and Justice Evan Young. A round of applause for the Texas Supreme Court. We have several former Texas Supreme Court justices with us this evening. Chief Justice Thomas Phillips, Chief Justice Wallace Jefferson, Justice Craig Enoch, Chief Judge Priscilla Richmond from the Fifth Circuit, Justice Dale Wainwright, and soon to be more relevant, DPS Commissioner Dale Wainwright. Thank you so much for being here, Mr. Commissioner. Justice Harriet O'Neill, Judge Jeff Brown, and Justice Eva Guzman. A round of applause. Thank you all for being here. We also have with us many jurists from the Courts of Appeals, the United States Courts of Appeals, the State Court of Appeals. That's the one we all know and love, right? The trial courts, federal and state and county courts of law. Would you, all the judges, please stand and be recognized for your service? Thank you. Thank you for being here. We also have several leaders from the State Bar of Texas. I saw Trey Abel, the executive director, and I'm not sure who else is here, but if you are with the State Bar, please rise and be recognized. Thank you all for being here, and I want to take a minute and introduce some other special guests this dinner is a little bit different, because you know what they say about me behind my back, that Wise, he's a little bit different. And so I decided that this year's dinner would be a little bit different. So we have some additional special guests, and y'all can stand or not stand, but we're going to clap for you. Deputy Director of the Department of Public Safety, Freeman Martin. Former Texas Ranger Chief, the youngest Chief of the Texas Rangers, and the first Hispanic Chief of the Texas Rangers, Tony Leal, is with us tonight. We have the Chairman of the Texas Ranger Bicentennial 2023, Russell Molina. You'll meet our speaker soon enough, but This is not on Mary Sue's script, and she's going to kill me, but even after 1,000 youth sporting events, my parents, Jim and Jane Wise, came to Austin to support me. Mom and Dad. I picked some great parents, and I guess it's a reminder to all of us with children that you're never too old to go to your kids' activities. So thank you all for coming over today. At this time, I also want to specifically and especially recognize our 2023 dinner chair, Mark Trachtenberg. He taught us about summary judgments this morning, and he put together this dinner this evening. Mark, would you stand and let us clap for you? Thank you, Mark, and the entire dinner committee for everything you've done. At this time, I'm going to invite Chief Justice Nathan Hecht and Jonathan Smaby up, the Executive Director for the Texas Center for Legal Ethics, to present the Chief Justice Jack Pope Professionalism Award. Gentlemen.
The Chief Justice Jack Pope Professionalism Award is presented each year by the Texas Center for Legal Ethics to the Texas appellate lawyer or judge who epitomizes the highest level of professionalism and integrity. Professionalism, by which we mean adherence to the values expressed in the Texas Lawyers' Creed, in our ethical canons, and in our commitment to a civility in our practice, is not always easy and harder these days as our divided society is distinctly uncivil. Steve Hayes is distinctly civil. As Kevin Dubose has written, in working with and against Steve on cases, he has been, quote, uncommonly courteous, professional, and big-hearted, end of quote. In his 43 years at the Texas Bar, since graduating Austin College and Harvard Law School, Steve has handled countless appeals, as Westlaw attests. He began his professional career as a briefing attorney for the greatly admired Charlie Barrow on the Supreme Court of Texas, later Dean of the Baylor Law School. Steve has certainly taken after his mentor. Steve's legal skills have not escaped notice. He's been recognized among the best lawyers in America and Texas super lawyers. His record is also one of service. He's been chair of the appellate law section and served on the litigation section council. He's written extensively for years, notably on the issues of error preservation. And Steve is Mr. Fort Worth. He publishes a second court newsletter covering the work of the Fort Worth Court of Appeals. Civility and service to the profession have been hallmarks of Steve Hayes' career, and he is well deserving of the Chief Justice Jack Pope Professionalism Award. Steve.
Okay, that's enough. Thank you. Thank you, Chief, for your kind comments. And I want to thank the Center for this great honor. A few Friday afternoons ago, Jonathan Smaby called me and left a voicemail because I was on the phone that he needed to talk to me on Monday about an issue, and so I spent the weekend hoping that Jonathan wasn't calling to forewarn me of an impending ethics complaint. And then when we talked on Monday, and he informed me that I was going to receive this honor, I was left in slack-jawed astonishment, to say the least. So I spent the next couple of days thinking and compiling a list of all the ways that I was unworthy of the list, of the honor. For those of you who have the chance, you can ask my wife, Mary, for whom I'm eternally grateful, what it's been like to live with some bundle of joy like that for nearly 4 decades, and you can give her your sympathies at the same time. But I finally segued to thinking about the reason for this honor every year, and it's Chief Justice Jack Pope. So as Chief Justice Hicks said, when I spent a year as Charlie Barrow's briefing attorney 43 years ago, I came to know that then Justice Jack Pope was someone who was both contemplative and impulsive, supportive and demanding, an advocate for his position but understanding of the position of others, someone who knew when to think about things and thought about them, but when it was time to say something about something and when it was time to do something about something. He had high expectations for those around him. He had higher expectations of himself. He could be impish, and as my longtime friend Bill Chris and my former moot court partner and a prior recipient of this honor once said, in Jack's own words, he could be scrappy in ways that still bring a smile to my face. And that's when I realized that this honor is not about the recipient ever. It's about a chance to remember Chief Justice Pope. Several years ago, at the 30th anniversary of the founding of the State Bar Appellate Section, Kurt Kuhn referred to the community of appellate practitioners in Texas as the best small town in Texas, and he was right. And given Chief Justice Pope's involvement in that community, I think we've got a little bit better claim than the rest of the members of the State Bar to his legacy. So with that in mind, I'd like for each of you to find your glass and join me in a toast to the beacon of professionalism who will forever guide us, Chief Justice Jack Pope. Thank you, folks.
Congratulations, Steve. That's wonderful. Especially enjoyed the toast of the Chief Justice. Well, if you're ever the MC for one of these things, you are going to miss somebody when you announce everybody. When I was on litigation counsel, we had a retreat in Big Bend at the Gage Hotel, and there were only 2 of us on the entire litigation council who would get up before about 9 o'clock and drink coffee on the porch and talk about the important things in life, such as aviation and whiskey and et cetera. And he's here tonight. I'm so sorry. My friend Paul Green is with us. Paul, thanks. If I don't write it down, it doesn't happen anymore. All right. I want to call up my historian buddy and fellow of the Society, Lynn Liberato, to come give us a fellow's report.
Thank you, Justice Wise. I'm honored to be called a historian in the same breath as you are. All right, so my job, which is going to be quick, is to recognize the fellows and to update you on what the fellows are doing. But some of you may be asking, what in the heck is a fellow? Well, you get this great honor by contributing money. A lot of honors work out that way. But so there are 40 of us. That's a subgroup of the society. And because of those donations, the society is able to do some special projects. And the main special project is what's called Taming Texas or Teach Texas, where we publish books and we send lawyers and judges into 7th grade classrooms to teach them about history and to have an appreciation for why Texas is the way it is and the credit that goes to our judiciary and our lawyers. So that's the major project, and the short update, which there's going to be more, but anyway, the short update is we've now published our 4th book, pretty good, and we're expanding our classroom activities. The 4th book is entitled Taming Texas Women in the Law, and it covers many of the important women in the legal history of our state And as I look around, quite a few of them are in this room, which is very cool. Chief Justice Hecht wrote the foreword for the book, as he has done for the other 3 books. But this is only one of the many ways and indications of the great support that he's given the Historical Society and this project. And no report would be complete, Chief Justice, without thanking you and expressing our deep appreciation for all you've done. Thank you very much. So, real quickly, the other 3 books are Taming Texas, How Law and Order Came to the Lone Star State. It was published in 2016. The second is Law and the Texas Frontier. The third is entitled The Chief Justices of Texas, and won't be a big surprise, that tells the story of the 27 Chief Justices of the Supreme Court of Texas. Now, all these books are aimed at 7th graders, but I promise you, they're very cool, aren't they, Judge? They are very, very cool, especially the ones with some of our names in it. All right, so... Anyway, the other aspect, put judges and lawyers in the 7th grade classrooms, where we continue to partner with the HBA to take this program to schools all over Houston. In the past 8 years, the HBA volunteers have taught the program to more than 25,000 7th graders. 25,000, that's pretty good. Past chairs of the Houston Project have included an all-star cast of Justice Brett Busby, Judge Jennifer Elrod, Justice Ken Wise, and Justice Francis Borleo. In 2024, get excited, the Austin Bar will be teaching Taming Texas, and we're going to expand the program even more beyond that. So, in conclusion, let me do the main thing I'm supposed to do, which is to recognize not only David Beck and our great leader Warren Harris, who couldn't be here tonight to give this report, but all the fellows who have contributed to making this really wonderful project such a success. So may I ask all the fellows to please stand, and everybody else, please give them a warm round of applause. All right. All right. Well, thank you on behalf of the Society. By the way, we invite you to join us as members, and we also so appreciate your allowing us to take a few minutes to share the success of this great program and its fine leaders. Thank you, and thank you, Justice Wise.
Thank you so much, Lynn, and thanks to all the fellows. You really are so important to this society, and we really appreciate it. I want to take what I promised will be just a couple of minutes thanking all of you for allowing me to be a part of this great organization. I attended my first Hemphill dinner in 2002 when Judge Mark Davidson described it to me as everyone you need and want to see in one place, followed by shutting down the Four Seasons bar. So, as usual, he was correct. You know, between everyone in this room, try and think about how many thousands of lunches and dinners we all go to, but this is the one that I never miss. I especially appreciate each one of you for being here and supporting the mission of the Texas Supreme Court Historical Society. This dinner is really a celebration of the great work that the Society does. Nothing more important than what Lynn just described. The Teaching Texas program has had a profound effect on thousands of children. I am so grateful that the Society exists, and thank you to all of you for doing your part to take care of the history of the judicial branch. It's very important. I also want to mention specifically our Executive Director, Sharon Sandel, our Executive Assistant, Mary Sue Miller, our intrepid editor, the Journal, Karen Patton. These ladies make the organization run, and I think they deserve a round of applause. I also appreciate all my fellow officers and trustees. They're a wonderful group of friends and very hardworking. I'm very privileged to be in your company. Thank you for all that you've done. One of the fun things I get to do at this dinner is to present the President's Award. And one of the things that I wanted to do this particular year is further integrate this society into the larger Texas history community. Some of you may have read in the paper a little bit about the Texas State Historical Association. That'll form some of the stories afterwards. But we have sponsored a session at the State Historical Association annual meeting. Every year we'll do so again. We held our last trustees meeting this year at the Alamo, where we got to tour, a private tour of the new collections building from the curator himself, Ernesto Rodriguez, which was very special. And tonight we will participate in the year-long celebration of the bicentennial of the Texas Rangers. So this year, I am presenting the President's Award to someone who helped with those efforts of taking our society to the larger history community. Earlier this year, she presented a paper at the TSHA annual meeting in El Paso, where her lecture on Gus Garcia and the desegregation of Texas juries was very well received from scholars not only from around Texas, but from around the nation. She also attended on behalf of the society the quadrennial Conference of Mexican Historians, which was held here in Austin this year. She has served as a trustee of this society for several years, and I'm so proud to present this year's President Award to Justice Gina Benavidez. Gina?
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you. Can I make?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, y'all are going to make me cry. Please stop. Thank you. I'm just going to take a few moments. Like Steve, when I was told earlier, and it was just a couple of days ago, that my friend would award me this award, I kept saying, really? You're kidding, right? I really thought it was a joke. I really thought they were pulling my leg because there are so many candidates in this room and people who I truly believe, and I mean this in all sincerity, is more deserving candidates than this. But then Justice Wise told me why he was giving me this award, and I said, but I love doing that. I love representing the society. I love going to the annual conference and learning about our history and presenting and giving our understanding as well. So to me, it's been a labor of love. It hasn't been anything other than that. And so to receive this award, it's truly just doing something that I love to do and will continue to do. When I talk about our history, and I gave the presentation of Gus Garcia and Hernandez versus the state of Texas, this is what this society stands for, right? This is why we're here. This is why we gather. This is why the fellows do what we do. Because now more than ever, it is so imperative that we don't forget our history and that we continue to discuss, even today, the historical and landmark case of Hernandez versus state of Texas. It is more important and more relevant today than it was even when Gus Garcia argued it at the U.S. Supreme Court. So I will continue to work for the Historical Society, and I will continue to work with them hand in hand to continue to preserve the history of this great state. And I want to thank each of you, and of course my friend Ken Wise, for allowing me the privilege and honor to serve on this board and to take on this endeavor. Thank you very much.
This year, 2023, marks the bicentennial of the Texas Rangers, and we in Texas don't have many organizations or institutions still existing that are 200 years old. You know, the Rangers are one of the unique law enforcement organizations in the world. They started as an arm of the Mexican government in 1823, and they still exist as a division within the Department of Public Safety. And there are many events that are being held throughout this year to commemorate this unique and iconic organization, and is one of the major historical associations, right, Justice Benavidez? We're going to participate. And also, at this dinner, we traditionally have a lot of judges speaking and not speaking, and so that's enough last responders. I thought we needed to hear from a first responder. Chief Jason Taylor got his criminal justice degree from Sam Houston State. He's a graduate of the Northwestern University School of Police Staff and Command. He and I may or may not be on a Houston Rodeo committee together. The rest of any of those activities are classified, of course. Chief Taylor is a 4-time recipient of the Houston 100 Club Officer of the Year Award 4 times, and has received several other awards and commendations, including a DPS Regional Commanders Award and a Ranger Company Commanders Award. He's married to Rachel Taylor, who's here with us. By the way, I got to say, you're going to learn as you know what Rangers do and how they live and how they're structured, that the toughest members of the Ranger family are the Ranger wives. And we've got 3 here tonight: Coco Leal, Rachel Taylor, and Shannon Martin. Can we have a round of applause for the Ranger wives? We know who does the real work around here. Welcome, Chief Taylor. Thank you for being with us.
Welcome. Hey, I'm truly blessed to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I usually speak in front of Rotary clubs and junior high students, so they don't know what I'm telling them.
You are right in the right place, I'll tell you.
I was going to throw legislators in there, but I didn't want to make any jokes.
Well, tell us a little bit, describe your position, your official position, and how you, your career, how you got to where you are.
Well, I started with DPS after I graduated from Sam Houston. I was told by Texas A&M that I probably shouldn't be a mechanical engineer. So I went over to Sam Houston, graduated in 97, got with DPS in 98, fortunately. All I really wanted to do in law enforcement was be a trooper. I had no interest in being a city officer. Nothing's wrong with that. They do all the work, really, or a sheriff's deputy, or a federal agent especially. So I wanted to go to DPS. I got fortunate enough to get selected. And in DPS, with the Rangers, you have to have 8 years in law enforcement to be a Ranger. 4 of those can be with another agency, but the last 4 have to be with DPS. But I did all my time with DPS, so I spent 10 years or 5 years in the Highway Patrol. And I spent 6 years in the Highway Patrol and about 3 years in our Criminal Investigations Division. And then I got into the Rangers in 2008.
2008. Well, I have a question about judge plates that I'll ask you later. But what is it that drew you to law enforcement? Why'd you want to be a cop?
It's one of those things that it just happens upon you someday, to be honest with you. I don't have any family in law enforcement. I didn't have any friends in law enforcement. I had the normal interactions with law enforcement as a teenager, like everyone else did.
Turn the tape off.
Yeah, so I was actually stopped by a trooper one day on my way to community college before I went to A&M. And he was very professional, and I just appreciated, his discretion that he didn't afford me that day. But he looked sharp, and he drove a clean white, black and white car. And it really, honestly, just stuck with me. And that's really why, as I continued on with college, that kind of just stuck in my mind. And then when I realized I wasn't going to be what, maybe my parents or friends thought I was going to do, and I took a different path, that's the path I wanted to take.
Well, we're glad you did. What is the structure of the Ranger Force? I mentioned the Rangers started as an arm of the Mexican government. In those days, that was a paramilitary unit, and it sort of stayed that way, and then a combination of the two. And then as one of the great things I think about the Rangers is, as law enforcement, as society changes, law enforcement has to change. And the Rangers are still here 200 years later, so they've obviously gone through a lot of changes. But what's the current structure of the Ranger Force? What do y'all do?
So today we're an arm of DPS. We're a division of DPS. We have been since 1935. Obviously, there's the chief, which is me, and we have 6 company commanders. which are majors. Rangers are still called ranger areas of responsibility are still called companies, like they were when the Rangers started in 1823 with one company under Stephen F. Austin. Actually, August 4th of 1823, he signed a proclamation for 10 men to act as rangers to protect his colony. And then as the Rangers grew, they grew into companies, and they grew, to protect the frontier from bandits and Indian attacks at the time. So today, we still have the Ranger companies, which make up different sections of the state, different regions, and they coincide with the Texas DPS regions. And we also have a headquarters company that handles a lot of the administrative tasks.
And what are there are a lot of different units that didn't exist even 20 years ago, specialty units that y'all have. Tell us a little bit about those.
So there's several. We have a cold case unit, unsolved crime investigation team, which does outstanding work. In 2022, they solved 7 cold case homicides, which is really unprecedented and totally different investigations. We have a sexual assault kit initiative unit, which is grant funded by the Bureau of Justice Assistance. So I have 2 rangers, some analysts, some grant individuals that work through that. And they work, what they do is they identify unsolved sexual assault clusters around the state with unknown DNA, and they attempt to identify who that individual is in those unidentified clusters. They also go after DNA which is owed to the state. So believe it or not, TDCJ sometimes will allow offenders to depart their jail cells without getting the legally owed DNA that those offenders should have given years before. So we'll go after those individuals and we'll collect their DNA and put those into CODIS, and then we attempt to solve, and we have solved numerous sexual assaults and 2 cold case sexually related homicides in 2022 with that group. In addition to that, I could go on. So actually, believe it or not, the DPS SWAT teams are under my command. I have 3 Tier 1 SWAT teams, 2 in Austin and 1 in the Rio Grande Valley. I have 6 regional SWAT teams. Makes up about 100 individuals. These are not actually Texas Rangers. These are SWAT operators. I have 169 actual Texas Rangers that wear the Cinco Peso. I have a forensic artist.
Wait, let me interrupt you.
Okay.
Let me interrupt you. Tell us about the Cinco Peso. That's a great piece of Ranger history.
So if I had a show and tell, I would pass one around. I do that at the Rotary Club, but it may not work here.
These junior high students.
The junior high too. But so the Texas Ranger badge is actually a peso, a Cinco Peso, a $5 Mexican coin. Still today, this is actually a $50 gold coin, but the normal Ranger silver badge. And if you turn the badge over, you may not be able to see, but you can see the Mexican eagle still on the back of the Texas Ranger badge, and it's a testament to the Mexican heritage of the Texas Rangers and Texas. So we still wear the Cinco Peso today, and you can tell by the ridges of the coin on the normal Ranger badges. The legend is that they didn't want to defame a United States coin, so they cut a Mexican coin out. I was also told another legend is actually on the border. A lot of Rangers work the border. These are a lot easier to come by.
Right.
So that's why they made the badges that way.
Well, I'm sorry, I interrupted your description of the units. We've covered all the DNA work and the SWAT teams.
So we also have crisis negotiation, which is our negotiators. We have a major crime scene team. So you may not know, but the Rangers have responded and worked the crime scene at pretty much every major unfortunate event that's happened in this state in the past 10 years and longer. Both of the Fort Hood shootings, Santa Fe High School, Sutherland Springs Church, the Dallas 5 officers that were killed, the El Paso Walmart, Robb Elementary, Uvalde, and I could go on and on with these unfortunate events that many of these same Rangers have responded to every one of these same events. It's very trying on them, but they are very good at what they do. They're crime scene reconstructionists. They operate like a crime scene scanners, which are, you could put one up in this room and it would scan the whole room, digitally, and everything's to scale. and they move it around. They can move it outside. And they also do crime scene reconstruction with ballistics and, firearms trajectories and things of that nature. Also, those same individuals have bloodstain analysis, bloodstain spatter analysis. They do that as well. Let's see, I have a group of, I'm also over a group of it's called the Border Security Operations Center. So I have 6 Joint Operation Intelligence Centers on the U.S.-Mexico border. They have crime analysts linked in with our partner agencies, and they collect data, and we push that data up into one location, our Texas Fusion Center, and we push that border data, border intelligence up to one spot. Also manage a system called Drawbridge, which is a network, believe it or not, that started about 10 years ago of game cameras. Just a few little game cameras that one of the troopers or rangers wanted to put out on a crossing on the Mexico border. And we've turned that into a 6,000 camera network of game cameras called Drawbridge. And we have operations centers with big monitors, and it's really just $150, $200 game cameras, which we glue sticks and leaves and all kinds of things to them and turn them into rocks. And we play, they're all across Mexico. And this is not secret because the cartel finds them every once in a while and takes their picture and, so they take them over to Mexico and do things with them. But the cameras, and so it's not as top. I'm not telling anything top secret here, but we have that's a huge network. And I don't want to go into budgets here, but just as an interesting.
Well, we do have a commissioner here.
Yeah.
If you'd like to talk about.
I would like to acknowledge my commissioner here, Judge Wainwright, and Lieutenant Colonel Martin. I can't see it because of the lights, but 2 of my bosses are here, so I'll try to keep it under control. But we have a battery, a AA battery budget of $150,000 per month.
Wow. Those of us with elementary school children, what a coincidence that is.
We're the largest purchaser of AA batteries in the world, I think.
Well, it's incredibly sophisticated. I want to talk about the other agencies, but before I do that, so some of the guys you work with are not Rangers. You mentioned the SWAT teams, but your 169 Rangers are doing most of that work. In the 1800s, one of the interesting things about the Rangers, one of the unique things was you could sign up to be a Ranger and the state might pay you, they might not, but you had to bring your own horse, bring your own gun, bring your own bullets. So when you start with the Rangers, day one, are you issued equipment? I mean, all that sophisticated equipment you just described, what do you do?
Well,
You have to bring your own batteries?
pretty much. When you start with the Rangers, you come out of DPS, Highway Patrol, but usually you come out of our Criminal Investigations Division, which most people don't realize that we have special agents in DPS. They do a great job. They do all kinds of great investigations, narcotics, human trafficking, gangs, organized crime. So when you come into the Rangers out of one of these other divisions, you bring your DPS weapons with you. But then you got to go to the prison and you got to get all kinds of swanky stuff made for you from the
Right,
prisoners.
you got to get the portfolios,
You got to get
the
leather
boots, the belt,
portfolios and
yeah.
leather belts and
Gotta
gun
look the
belt.
part.
And you got to get a double rig gun belt and wear it at least for a week or two, and then take to look like you're a real old Ranger and things of that nature. But a lot of Rangers today, the traditional firearm of the Rangers is the 45, the 1911 45. So most Rangers go out, and that's not a DPS issued weapon. So they'll go out and buy their own weapon and they'll qualify with it, and then they'll go back to the prison and they'll get fancy grips put on it, or things of that nature. But
You got to look the part. But what about
Exactly.
like the stuff that you use day to day? Does every Ranger carry a trunk full of basic crime fighting equipment, or how does that work? Because you described about 18 different functions that any given Ranger might do.
yeah, I didn't even go into our drone program. I have 52 Rangers that are drone pilots, so I have Rangers carrying drones around with them as well. So those are for the border and for crime scenes. But yeah, so we're issued usually a half-ton, sometimes a three-quarter-ton pickup with locking bed covers and gun vaults, and it carries all kinds. You'll see a Ranger truck that's going down the road, a half-ton, squatting with the headlights shining in the air because it's loaded. Every one of them will go into this, I guess, but every Ranger is a crime scene investigator. So rangers typically work their own crime scenes. We can go into a little bit of that. I've got 40 rangers that have graduated from the National Forensics Academy and at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, which is a 10-week crime scene school, and every other ranger has been through a 3-week crime scene school. So if you imagine crime scene equipment, you imagine cameras, you imagine firearms, you imagine drones, and just everything else that anyone else would carry in a vehicle. So yeah, for the most part, these days anyway, we're issued a half-ton pickup. When I started, I was issued a Chevy Impala.
What was your first ranger assignment?
So I started in Waco, and which I loved. I actually was stationed at the Ranger Museum as a ranger, and that was pretty cool. You didn't want to be in that museum at night. That place was haunted. I didn't stay. But so I was issued a blue Chevrolet Impala that I guess someone retired, and he had trashed it out and smoked in it and done all kinds of things. But it was not the vehicles that are issued today.
Oh, yeah. So how long did you have to have that car?
So when I transferred to Houston, they made me take that car. When you leave one company and go to the other, you take the crappiest stuff they have. And so when I went to Company A and worked for Captain Leal, I took the blue Impala. And there's a story that goes with that, of course. But one day,
tell the story.
Okay. One day I was outside. I don't know how much time.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
No, we're here.
I mean,
We're not out of wine yet, are we?
It's just a normal life story. I just happened to be a ranger. But my son was outside with me one day, and he was 4 or 5 years old, and he had a little Spider-Man with a magnet hands on it. And like I've said this before, but it must have been a rare earth magnet because that thing was strong as heck, whoever made that toy. I didn't notice, but he stuck it on my old blue Impala, and he started running circles around this car. And I'm working on something in the driveway, and I look up, and he has stripped the paint off of that car all the way around it. And I was like, oh my God, this state equipment, I'm in trouble. I got a new captain, I just transferred here, what am I gonna do? So I tried to wax it. I used the as seen on TV stuff. It doesn't work. And so finally, I was like, hey, I got to keep it away from the captain and as much as I can. But one day, Captain Leal, hey, let's go to lunch. Nobody else is here. He goes, you drive. Dadgummit. So it was a sunny day, and you can't hide scratches on a sunny day in Houston. And he saw it, and he goes, what the hell happened to your car? I said, sir, man, it's the one they gave me from Company F. I don't really know what.
Blame it on Waco.
Yeah. He's
it
like,
always works.
I'm going to call Captain up there and give him a piece of my mind. I said, no, don't do that. I'm fine with it. Anyway.
Well, Tony, do you remember that story? Okay, so all this stuff y'all do, but there's only 169 of you, so you can't work on every case. So how do you get a case? How does a case come to the Texas Rangers?
So Rangers are obviously stationed in different parts of the state. Most of the Ranger cases are based off of relationships with sheriffs and smaller police departments in the rural areas of Texas or in the suburbs and outward, usually for the most part. And those are based off relationships that our Ranger lives in that area. We basically give these sheriff's offices and PDs an extra investigator, an experienced investigator that may work they may work a homicide in this county every month, but they're also covering this county where they work one every 3 years. So they get a lot of experience here on this and a little experience here on this, and they become very well-rounded investigators. And we bring we leverage the power of the whole state, a Ranger does, with our aircraft, our crime lab, our troopers, our special agents. And we also have the ability to make a phone call at any time in the day or night. If a Ranger in Montgomery County calls a Ranger in Lampasas, that Ranger's going to answer the phone, and our policy is he or she will drop everything they're doing if another Ranger calls, and they will treat that like their own case. And they will work that portion of the case in Lampasas or wherever until the bitter end. But basically the cases, the state of Texas is different than other states, as y'all are aware more than I am, but the state police doesn't really have original jurisdiction on much. all the reporting agencies are the sheriffs and the police departments. Those are where crimes are reported. So when crimes are reported, our rangers get called out like they're investigators, if those relationships are there. Sometimes we have DAs that force us into investigations because they don't trust what a local agency may be doing, or they may be inexperienced, or things. Those are always difficult to navigate, obviously, but that's our bread and butter in the rural areas is violent crime, and it's as a part of a relationship with a local agency. In the cities, we work a lot of in-custody deaths in large jails. We work officer-involved shootings as a third party for other agencies at the request of those agencies or the district attorney's office. In addition to, which I didn't go into a while ago because we keep flipping around here talking about scratches on cars and gun belts, but we also have a public integrity unit, which was founded in...
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah.
Lose my number. No, tell us about that.
Yeah, well, it's in 2015, the state thought it was a good idea to take the public integrity unit away from Travis County DA's office. So they gave it to the Rangers, and basically we investigate state employees and state officers, the state officers being obviously state elected officials, judges, DAs.
I hope I get off the stage.
Yeah, those criminal investigations only, and we basically stay busy evaluating complaints, which most of the time lead to no criminal nexus, to be honest with you.
That's good to know. Actually, I'm on the State Commission of Judicial Conduct, which is the fault of several of you here, and we have a ranger that's assigned to us. Has so far not taken me up on the investigations I've suggested, but there's always tomorrow. So what I'm hearing is the Rangers have, mystique may be a strong word, but I mean, you are somebody that everybody seems to trust and can call when there's a sticky problem. And that obviously comes from history. In a 200-year history, I mean, it's way more than we can cover tonight. Some of that, how does the Ranger history influence the modern Ranger force, in your opinion? Or does it?
No, it does. I would say, from the frontier days all the way up until really we started policing, actually policing in the early 1900s. And we were the men, and now the men and women who wear the white hat. So we, as far as I'm concerned, we've always been the good guys and gals that show up, and we always try to do a good job. We try to hold things together when other agencies they have the capability but not the capacity to do a certain job, or there may be some sort of bickering among other agencies, and we just try to be. We've always been fact finders ever since I've been in the Rangers. We usually don't give opinion on what we think happened or what so we're reporters of facts, and we're good at that. So people trust that. District attorneys trust that. The district attorneys can form their own opinions, as you know, and they will, and they can do whatever they want to do in grand jury or trial. But our reports are fact based only, which they like.
But, if I may, sir, and with your public integrity unit. If you go back 200 years, and as the Ranger, you described, the Rangers joined, DPS was what, 1935, 38,
Correct.
Something like that?
35.
So there were interesting times in Texas. It wasn't always like it is in 2023. We weren't always as diverse as we are. We weren't always as respectful of that diversity, to put it mildly. So there are some problematic areas of Ranger history. Y'all think about that? I mean, I've never known a Ranger that ignores it, but does that play into the mindset? Are you sensitive to that?
Yeah, absolutely it does. It comes up whenever we have some sort of legislation that's going to give Rangers more authority to do something, or give us the public integrity unit or more border authority, or there's going to be individuals that show. So the effect is they come out of the woodwork, and rightfully so, and they discuss in front of the legislature or whoever will listen about the Ranger past and some things that may have happened in the early 1900s and into the 19-teens of some incidents that happened on the border, and some of those are attributed to Rangers. Some of those are falsely attributed to Rangers. Some of those were Rangers who were not Rangers the day before. They were made special Rangers because, Ma Ferguson fired the whole Ranger force, and all these new rangers came into play. So I'm not making excuses. Obviously, there were some issues that happened, but we're talking over 100 years ago now, and the Rangers have moved past it. We're not the force of 1923 with Frank Hamer, and of course Frank Hamer rightfully killed Bonnie and Clyde. I hope no one would oppose that think that was a bad idea.
That was a good one.
Yeah, but
Good shoot.
that was Louisiana thought so. That's where it
Yeah,
happened.
that's for sure.
But of course, never mind. Huh? I was going to say something about Louisiana, but I'm not going to.
Hey, I got some trivia for you. I got to give you some trivia. So that whole scene that led up to the Hamer capturing Bonnie and Clyde started with a prison break at the Eastham unit when Bonnie and other members of the gang broke Clyde out of Eastham, which was called the Ham. And that prison's not called Eastham anymore. It's now the J. Dale Wainwright unit. And you talk about Texas history, right? That's true. Everything I just said was true. On to other things I just said. So
Bonnie and Clyde also killed 2 Texas highway patrolmen, Murphy and Wheeler, in Grapevine. I think on Easter Sunday.
And one of them was on their first day on the job.
Yeah. So they anyway. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go watch The Highwaymen on
Yeah.
Netflix. You'll see it. So let's talk a little bit more about Ranger history and how it affects the culture, because you got the Cinco Peso badge, you got the white hats, all of this tradition. Who were the influential Rangers to you when you took office?
Well, I mean, I could name some names that no one probably knows. When I got into the Rangers in 2008, things were a lot different than they are now. Now we like I said before, we have major crime scene teams. We attack incidents as a team. When I got into the Rangers in 2008, which wasn't that long ago, 15 years ago, it was literally one riot, one Ranger, which was one Ranger went to a scene, 2 Rangers were never seen together unless they were eating lunch, for the most part. A Ranger covered his area, his or her area, and that was it. So my FTO Ranger was a guy named Matt Cawthon in Waco. I look up to him, and then I transferred to Houston, and an individual by the name of Brian Taylor was a Ranger in Belleville. He was one of the key players in the Rafael Resendez Ramirez case, even though another Ranger kind of took all the credit and got in front of on Time Magazine. Brian Taylor did a lot of the work on that case, and nothing against the other Ranger. I love him too. But so Brian and David Maxwell, who is
Okay, we are going to stay way away from that today. Rusty, Dick, y'all are here. I told them both when I saw them, they've had a lot of Ranger stuff going on today.
I'll leave it at that. David was a good Ranger.
Yeah,
so.
he was. What? Great. Public integrity units coming with. All right, we've got a few more minutes. We got to hear some stories. What's the most interesting case that you worked as a Ranger? You're an administrator now. What was the most interesting case you worked on?
I would say one of the more interesting cases I worked, I can't remember if Freeman was my captain or Tony at the time, but in 2009 we had a doctor killed in Austin County. His name was Jorge Mario Gonzalez. He was a Guatemalan physician. He was from Guatemala, but he was a physician at Methodist in Houston, and he had a ranch in Austin County. And him and his wife and young son were going out to the ranch, and they got there, they pulled up, and as they were unloading the car at the ranch, these 3 masked gunmen come around the side of the porch and attempt to take them hostage. And Dr. Gonzalez ran inside the house, got his .357 Magnum, and came out and confronted the gunman. And the wife, he ends up getting shot and killed, and then the wife hides in the closet, and the ranch hand that was with them gets shot as well. The bad guys leave. They get in a shootout with a Belleville police officer, and he lets the bad guys get away to go check on the wife because she was frantic and didn't know if she was still being attacked or what. But anyway, it was literally a whodunit for a couple of days, and we had meetings with, they thought maybe it was a Guatemalan not the government of Guatemala, but a faction of a Guatemalan hit squad. We had meetings with some three-letter intelligence agencies, and it was going down this path of, we had like video of them like sliding under a fence, looking like a military operation, and it just went way this way when it really was all about money. You know, and the wife had nothing to do with it, but it was the ranch hand who got shot. It was him and his two brothers and a cousin who actually set the whole thing up. And it was actually a very astute Texas Highway patrolman. An hour after the shooting, he's coming into Belleville and he takes down a license plate of a vehicle that matched the description, but it was going towards the crime scene. So he's like, that can't be the vehicle because it's going towards the crime scene, right? So he didn't stop it. But that vehicle, we figured out like 2 days later when it's an unsolvable case at that point. That license plate was sitting there. I go, let's run that again and see who that was, right? So we ran it, and the individual who owned the vehicle had changed the tags that day to a different license plate. So I'm like, that's definitely odd. It ended up being the ranch hand's stepdad's truck, and there was a lot of investigation went with it. You know, did the wife do it? But it was a very interesting case.
Wow.
I think they made some kind of special on it, but they didn't ask me about it.
They didn't put you on TV?
No, they didn't.
Okay. Well, maybe next time. That's fascinating. So it's one little thing that could break the entire
Absolutely.
case open. What other cases, like what are some cases that changed the way you thought about being a ranger or thought about being a law enforcement officer?
In general, there's, you know, you notice in my experience that this, you know, you're always taking care of the victims and the victim's family, but you also got to realize that the suspect is who he or she is, but you realize that he or she has a family as well, and they are also victims to us in some situations, and they need some attention as well. I worked another case that really set the tone for me is I worked a juvenile case in Harris County with a 12-year-old killed her dad intentionally. And I didn't know, I was a big fancy ranger and I knew everything I was doing, but I didn't know squat about juvenile law. And I knew the 6-hour rule and things of that nature, but we ended up flubbing that up a little bit, me and the PD, because we got some bad advice from somebody at the DA's office. I won't say who that was. But this was a long time ago, not the current regime. But so I ended up losing that confession where she said that her dad never abused her. And but anyway, she ended up winning that case. So just learning little things like that about, hey, I don't know everything. You know, I'm going to run into some situations where I'm going to need to make a call, right? I'm going to need to be the one that calls and asks for help because the PD looked to me to be the one who knew the answers, right? And I thought I did, and it wasn't all my fault, obviously, but you reflect on things like that, on things you can do better.
Well, we don't want anyone to leave here without some useful information. What are the big threats to Texas today? What are y'all concerned about? What keeps you up at night?
Well, I mean, obviously we have a border situation, which you may or may not have heard of, but you know, the border is there's a serious situation going on down there. You know, DPS in the past, up until the past couple years, and there's been other times as well, but we've always tried to interdict. We've always tried to interdict criminals, not migrants. That's what DPS's mission is to interdict criminals. And the Ranger recon teams have been on the border since about 2005, you know, hiding in the brush with Border Patrol. And we've always tried to interdict those that have tried to get away, those that are trying to push the narcotics, the fentanyl, it wasn't back then, but across the border. And now we've been, at this point, we're so overwhelmed with the migrant population that we can't interdict the narcotics, the fentanyl, the human traffickers, you know, human smugglers, yes, obviously we get those, but so we're missing out on a large portion of the bad stuff because we're bogged down with the normal people coming over here for the reasons that they come here for. So that's obviously a big problem, and you know, it ebbs and tides with the political ideologies of the time. But we're hoping we can get back to better times on that at some point.
Well, last thing I'll ask you, what do you think the Rangers have changed for 200 years? What's the next evolution?
We're going to have to grow. 169 Rangers, 254 counties. It'll need to be, we don't want to grow too big too fast, but our responsibilities are growing. More agencies depend on us. Like I said, the jail deaths and in-custody deaths and officer-involved shootings and things of that nature. You know, we're working about 120 officer-involved shootings a year, about the same number of jail deaths, and unfortunately those are not going down for whatever reason. And those take a lot of time. They need to be done right, and we're also sending multiple Rangers to these big scenes, so it bogs a Ranger down that's not even a lead on a scene and things of that nature. So we're going to need more people. We're going to need more support from the public. I don't think we need any more responsibilities. We're kind of, I think I only got into about 75% of them, to be honest with you, but we just need to keep pushing forward.
Well, we appreciate all you do for Texas. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for everything you and your fellow Rangers do for the state.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Jordan. All right. At this time, I'm going to call up Chief Justice Hecht, and my favorite part of the evening, swearing in my successor, Rich Phillips, as president of the Texas Supreme Court Historical Society. Chief and Rich.
I, Richard B. Phillips, Jr., do solemnly swear
I, Richard B. Phillips, Jr., do solemnly swear
that I will administer the office of President
that I will administer the office of President
of the Texas Supreme Court Historical Society
of the Texas Supreme Court Historical
to
Society
the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
I pledge to faithfully discharge
I pledge to faithfully discharge
my duties to preserve the posterity,
my duties to preserve for posterity
the lives and work of the Supreme Court
the lives and work of the Supreme Court
and the appellate courts of Texas,
and the appellate courts of Texas.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Well, this is a little more than intimidating for a Mormon kid who was born in Utah. We'll talk later about how he ends up here in Texas, but not tonight. I know I'm the last thing between you guys and getting to close down the bar at Four Seasons. I think we need to begin by giving another round of applause for Justice Ken Wise and the great work that he has done this last year. It figures that it falls on me to be the successor of the man who has a podcast, Wise About Texas. Will do my best, but I'm not going to come close to that, and I'm not starting a podcast. Don't want to try to compete with that. Luckily, although we don't have Justice Wise president anymore, he gets the best title around, immediate past president. We still have the podcast to listen to. We appreciate that and expect many more years of some great episodes there. I have just a few things that I need to cover before we adjourn for the evening. First, want to make an announcement about the Texas Appellate Law Hall of Fame. You may or may not be aware that in conjunction with the State Bar Texas Appellate Section, we elect every year members of this Hall of Fame. If you're not familiar with it, please look it up. It's a virtual Hall of Fame, so it's on the web. Google it, Texas Appellate Law Hall of Fame. You can see the people that we have inducted there over the years. This year we inducted 3 new members: the Honorable Fortunato Pete Benavides, the Honorable Richard and Dick Countess, and Professor L. Wayne Scott. So please join me in a round of applause for those new inductees. And please do check out the website. There's bios of all of these inductees and those that we've inducted over the past few years. It's an incredible collection of the people who've made our practice what it is today. Next, I need to thank all those who have been willing to continue to serve as trustees, even though I'm going to be the president. So if you are a current trustee of the society, please stand and be recognized. These trustees do a great amount of work every year, from helping to organize this dinner to the other things that you've heard about tonight and some things that you haven't heard about. And if you're interested in getting more involved in society, please come talk to me or one of the trustees. We'd be happy to find you a job. Speaking of that, if you have a badge like this and your name badge doesn't have a little blue border on it that says you're a member, let's fix that. So please, if you are here on a regular basis, even if this is the first time that you've been here, please consider joining the society to support the work that we're doing. It's easy to sign up. Go to the website, or you can find anybody that has a blue border. We'll be happy to help talk to you about it. But please join with us in continuing to preserve the history of these great institutions. I commented, so I've written my first article as president of the society, came out of this last issue of the Journal, and a quote from David McCullough about the importance of our history. Knowing our history means knowing who we are. And there's no greater task we could be involved in to help preserve our freedom, our democracy, our way of life for our children than to help them understand the history, to preserve that history, to help teach them that history and help them understand it. And I'm very honored to be involved in the work of this society and helping to bring that about. So, with that, we will adjourn until next year near this same time, September the 6th, 2024. Please put it on your calendar, Friday, September 6th, 2024. We'll be back here again. And until that time, we stand adjourned. Thank you for attending.